Hey, thanks for joining the webinar. We'll start right at the top of the hour. Hey, while we're waiting here, in your chat box on the right, type in where you're from, what city. Hey, welcome to the apartment webinar. We'll get started right at the top of the hour. In the meantime, let me know where you're from. Just type in the chat box. Appreciate you guys being early. Hey, Troy, thanks for letting me know. That's good. You never know with these technical things. Appreciate the feedback. Hey, Troy, in Louisville, Kentucky. Hey, welcome to the apartment webinar. We'll get started right at the top of the hour. In the meantime, if you're already on the call, appreciate you being early. Let me know in the chat box where you're from. Tauntaun. In Charlie. Oh, Charlie Rockville. Hey, welcome. That's close to where I am. Sweet. Alina in Canada. Welcome. Christine in Seattle. Welcome to the call. Hey, shout out to Augusta, Georgia, and LA. We'll get started at the top of the hour, so thanks for joining us early. So in the meantime, let me know where you're from. Hey, Stephen Phoenix, welcome. Hey, John in Auburn, Washington. Hey, Elena. City of Brother Love, welcome. Charles, Stratford, Connecticut. Catherine, New Hampshire. What's up? Hey, welcome to the apartment webinar. We'll get started right at the top of the hour, so sit tight. Just joining us now, let me know in the chat box where you're from. Hey, James in Dallas. Miguel from Pennsylvania. Hey, Rob, Charleston. Can't keep up, guys. Nice job. Clark, Minnesota. John in Houston. Appreciate guys getting on early. Let me know in the chat box where you're from. We'll get started in probably 2 to 3 minutes. Hey, Lauren in Odessa. Hey, Sam in Baltimore. Mark. This is the apartment webinar. We're going to learn how to find, analyze, and make an offer on our first apartment building. So we'll get started here in just a couple minutes, right at the top of the hour. In the meantime, let me know in the chat box where you're from. Hey, Josh in Orlando. Very funny. Mark, Palm Beach, Florida. Welcome. All right, guys. As promised, let's get started with a webinar. My name is Michael Blanc, and in today's webinar, we're going to learn how to find, analyze, and make an offer on our first apartment building. So my goal at the end of the webinar is to teach you how to create a network of brokers that can feed you deals, how to find a deal on LoopNet. So we're going to go on LoopNet and actually get download a deal and get a deal and look at that. We're going to analyze it to determine our maximum offer price, and then we're going to submit an offer using a letter of intent, which you'll have to stick around to the end of the webinar. I'll send you the link so you can download that. So it's my shameless bribe to keep it to the end of the webinar. Awesome. So let me change here. So how many of you here have read Rich Dad Poor Dad? Type in the year that you read Rich Dad Poor Dad. What year was that? Type that in the chat box. Well, anyway, unfortunately for me, I didn't read that book until I was 35 years old. So I discovered late in life that I was actually an entrepreneur. And it wasn't really my fault. I just never grew up with anybody in my household around me that was an entrepreneur. So I just did what everybody else did, and that is I got a job and went to college and got a good job. In fact, I got a master's degree in computer science, which I felt prepared me well for my current real estate and other entrepreneurial ventures. So, and in fact, when I got out of school, I was a programmer and joined a software startup after several years being out of school, and was at the right place at the right time. The company grew rapidly, and we went public in early 2001, which put a bunch of money in my bank account, and that was great. And my dream was to kind of be a CEO of a software company. And so I moved around inside the company and spent 2 years in marketing, and then a year actually selling software, which was a probably one of the hardest jobs I've ever done. And then it felt like it was time to go, and I left there. And like I said, my goal was to have my own software company, and just I did not see the right opportunity. And that's when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that's where I was like, I'm such an idiot. It doesn't really matter what you have in the bank. It matters how much passive income you're getting. So I kind of followed Robert Kiyosaki's advice, which was to get into real estate and have a cash flow business, and I decided to get into both. So on the real estate front, I got into flipping houses, and we did a few rehabs in 2005 to 2007. Almost got very close to buying an 82 unit in Texas at the time, where I was doing marketing, and that's kind of where I built my team. I'm in DC, so this was quite a bit away, and almost had this thing under contract. I must have looked at 110 different deals in that time. Got a lot of experience analyzing deals, and I was very frustrated with how long it took me to come back with an intelligent number for an offer price, which we're going to try to fix today here, obviously. I also got into a pizza franchise at the same time. So I did real estate, and I got into a pizza franchise, and the pizza thing was supposed to be my cash flow business, which I got into that. In 2009, the market turned for the better, and I decided to continue flipping houses. So in 2009 through about 11 or 12, flipped about 30 properties in that time. And because I deployed basically most of my net worth at the time into the restaurants, which are very capital intensive, I really had nothing left to invest. It was a good thing, bad thing. It's very easy if you have your own money to invest. The problem is you don't have really anybody looking over your shoulder, and you tend to make questionable decisions. In my case, I didn't have any more capital to invest, so I had to go out and raise money, and I did that by raising money from family and friends. And I got my first taste of what it's like to use other people's money, and it was freeing. Really, it was like, wow, this is amazing. People give me their money, and I can do stuff with it, and maybe there's some left over for me. That's pretty cool. My long-term vision, though, always was to get into buying a whole commercial property. I just felt like because of the market, I was distracted with the flipping houses thing. But in 2011, I came across a 12 unit in Washington D.C. But it took me 4 months to close on that because there was all kinds of issues and problems with it. But that was the kind of the first deal that I syndicated, meaning that we created an LLC with investors, and there was a private placement memorandum and an SEC attorney involved, and I really learned a lot. Now that 12-unit deal almost bankrupted me. I won't bore you with the details. You can read on it online under the About section. But suffice it to say that one of the tenants created so many problems for me that I nearly ran out of money in this project, and I really do believe it's a miracle that the tenants stopped doing what they were doing and gave us a chance to stabilize the property. A year later, I syndicated my second deal, which was a purchase of 2 pizza restaurants from another franchisee, and that structure was quite a bit different, but it still involved the private placement memorandum and stuff like that. So in the last 5 years, I learned a lot about raising money from people and how to find, analyze, and buy apartment buildings. But really, it was incredibly frustrating because it took so long, and I didn't really find a lot of resources to help me. So I decided back then that if I was ever in a position to do so, I would try to change that and help others accelerate that process and maybe make less mistakes than I did. So that's why in January of this year, I started writing articles I started my own blog, and I started writing articles weekly for the Bigger Pockets. And I started a podcast in May and a YouTube channel. And now I want to do 2 things. I want to kind of expand that content with free live training webinars, if this is the first one. And I wanted to launch a comprehensive e-course today on the call later on. That's kind of the best of its kind. It's been taking me a year to get this thing done. I know some of you have been waiting for it. But anyway, we'll talk about that a little later on. So let me check in with everyone real quick. I'm going to do a quick poll. And the first poll that you'll see is I want to know how many units you guys own right now. So on the right-hand side, you should see a poll come up. And I'll leave it live for about 6-7 seconds. Just click on the option and click on Submit Poll. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. All right, cool. Now we're going to close that poll. And I have a second question, and that is, how many units do you want to own in 5 years? So that's the second poll. Go ahead and make your choice and submit that poll. All right, we're going to close up that poll now. and we'll display the results here for everybody to see. Cool. All right, so you see the results there. So let's get right into the content here. So we want to find, and we want to analyze, and we want to make an offer. So we got to figure out what the offer price should be. So let's break this down into steps here. So on the finding front, the best way to find deals is commercial real estate brokers. Okay, so here are the steps, and we'll look at that in a second as we get into LoopNet. And hopefully some of you guys already created a login for that. If not, that's okay. Just follow along. So the first thing is to make a list of commercial real estate brokers, and we're going to use LoopNet to do that, where you can search for certain deals that you look for, and then based on that, you can create a list of brokers and with their emails and their phone numbers, etc., and some of your activity with them. Number two is you're going to contact that broker. LoopNet makes it kind of easy to do that, to send a message and to start the process. Then number three is you really want to meet the broker, because only then will you be able to build up rapport. And again, if you're just getting started with this, you may not have a track record in apartment building. So you have a little bit of an uphill battle, and you need to create credibility with these brokers because they got a lot of tire kickers. But we'll distinguish ourselves as we go along. Whenever you send a deal out, how many people actually get back to you? They're like, 25%. Right? That's a low number of people who actually respond back to their deal. So if you are one of them, even though without a track record, all of a sudden you're in the top 25% of their list, which is pretty cool. So let's go find a deal. All right, so we're going to go over to LoopNet. I can find the proper browser to do that. All right, so if you go to loopnet.com, I'm going to do a redirect to LoopNet. So I'm going to try to pop up on a browser with this, and I'm going to try to pop up LoopNet. If you get a pop-up blocker, just allow it to pop up the browser. We're going to do that right now. So you should see a browser pop up and direct it to LoopNet, so we can get going on this. So you can just follow along here. You're gonna have to create an account for this stuff if you haven't already. You can do this later. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to For Sale, start a new search, and you're going to click on multifamily stuff down here on the left. So we can click on all these different things we're looking for. And all right, we're going to click in Virginia and Richmond. That's kind of where I've been looking a little bit. And then we're going to click on Search, okay? LoopNet tries to upsell. LoopNet is actually is pretty neat. They do have some sale comp features, but you do need to pay for that. But if you're serious and you want to get some sales comps and rental comps, it's a pretty good tool to do that. So here you can see some of the buildings that are for sale, and I didn't specify price, so they're all over the place. There's little tiny ones. There's really big ones. Now there is one here that we'll use for our case study. Where the heck is it? It better be here. I'll get very upset. Magnolia Garden. This is, you see, is a 1.6, 64 units, a 10 cap. Well, that sounds juicy. Let's take a look at that. A couple things to notice. Number one, on the right here is the broker. It's got a phone number, and if you click on Contact Listing Broker, you can actually send them a message. So you would send them a message saying, "Hey, saw your property. Send me more information." La 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 la, and then you put that person in your spreadsheet. And you do this for all of the brokers that you see, and you start building up a network of brokers that you can start calling. Now, you look at this one. This guy's got several other listings also, and I like brokers that have multiple listings, especially of the size that I'm looking for. So if I'm looking, say, in the $1.2 million range, I like when brokers have those kind of deals in there. All right, so we got some photos in here. We got a few financials. We have a description, and where it is. So this is not really is interesting. What we really need is the financials for this thing. So what you're going to do is you're going to put in here, "Hey, please send me additional information. Send me the financials for this property," and off you go. Now, to fast forward on this thing, I've already done that step. Oh, by the way, sometimes you can download the financials, but oftentimes you can't, and then they'll send you one. So let's take a look and see what that looks like here. So they'll send you a PDF which looks like this. So there's a 64 unit. Let's get the address. And we are looking for certain information that we can use to kind of figure out what price we should offer. So they're asking 1.6. Here's some photos. I highlighted some of the things here earlier. It's got 64 units, so that's kind of cool. Offered at 1.6. All right, awesome. Let's see. What we really want is actual financials, ideally. Let's see. Some highlights here. It's in Richmond, obviously. It's 8 brick buildings. Brick is nice. 2-bedroom, 1 bath. That's nice. It was easier to rent oftentimes than a one bedroom. It says here $495 per month with potential to increase. So it's interesting. We're always looking for something with upside, so we'll have to ask the agent about what they mean by that exactly. What is the upside? Next is separately metered. That's nice. The more separately metered it is, the better. All right, so those are some of the highlights. So we're still looking for actual financials because that's what we're going to need to make an offer on that. So here are financials. Let's take a look at this. So this is a pro forma model. Let me scroll down a little bit and see what else is down here. A map. So this is not unusual, where the actual financials are actually not included, and they tell you what the property should do if it were managed well. So of course that begs the question, well, what are the actual financials? Well, given the fact that we have nothing else to work on at this point, we're going to use this. And the key here is not to spend so much time on this, because when I first got started, man, I was spending 4 hours per deal I got in, and I never got done. So what we want to do is get back quickly with we want to get back quickly to the broker with information. So anyway, let's get back here real quickly to the to my presentation, if I can ever find it. No, that's not it. Hang on a sec. Sorry. Sorry about that, guys. I'm trying to look for the right. There it is. Phew. So that's LoopNet. Now, on the negotiate side and analyzing side, there's kind of three things we got to do. The first one is when a broker sends you a deal, now what? So we just looked at the marketing package, and you have to answer these questions. And it's a little bit overwhelming, but these are important to answer. You want to answer them quickly. What's the building worth? In other words, what's the fair market value? What are your investment criteria and objectives? How would you structure a deal with the investors? What are the returns for you and your investors? How are you going to get paid? How believable are the financials reported by the seller? And what is your version of the truth of the actual financials? And what is the most you can pay for the property? So we won't answer all these questions today, but we want to know what's the building worth and what is the most that you should offer for this property. Those are the key criteria. So with that, let's do some key financial concepts so that we're on the same page here. There's two big important numbers: the net operating income and the capitalization rate. The net operating income is basically the income, everything after expenses, but before the debt service or the mortgage is paid. That's your net operating income. And as you know, the value of the building is based on the net operating income, and the multiplier to use is this thing called the capitalization rate. So it's a little fuzzy. Let me try to explain it on hand of an ATM machine. So imagine you have an ATM machine. It's sitting there in a shopping center or something like that, and let's say you're in a room with a guy who's selling that ATM in a shopping center, and he tells you that it's spitting out $100,000 profit. So this is after ATM fees and expenses and all that stuff. He takes home $100,000 from that ATM every year. That's pretty cool. So the net operating income for that thing is $100,000. So he asks, and you're in the room with 30 other guys, gals, whatever, and he asks you, hey, how much would you be willing to pay for this ATM? And you say, shoot, I'd be willing to pay $1 million for that. And he goes, okay, that's pretty cool. Why? He said, well, you know, that thing makes $100,000 each year. I'm putting in $1 million. That's a 10% return on my money. That's pretty good. That's better than getting the stock market. He goes, huh, okay, cool. Well, anyone else willing to pay more? And someone raises their hand and says, I'll pay $1.1 million. He goes, huh. Anyone else? And someone says, I'll pay $1.2 million. And he goes, well, why would you pay $1.2 million? This guy's only willing to pay $1 million. He goes, well, for me, if this thing kicks off $100,000 and I pay $1.2 million, that's an 8% return on my money, and that's pretty good for me, and I'm very happy with that. So the cap rate is basically the net operating income divided by the value, right? So in simple terms, the cap rate, if the net operating income is $100,000 and you're willing to pay $1 million, then the cap rate here is 10%. Now the thing with cap rates, it is an indication of the kind of multiple of income that people are willing to pay for a certain asset in a certain area. So if you put this over to apartment buildings, and let's say the prevailing cap rate in an area is 8%, that means that investors are willing to buy similar buildings in similar areas all for an 8 cap. And the capitalization rate is a way to quickly gauge the fair market value of a building. It doesn't mean those are your returns or anything like that, which makes it slightly less useful in that regard, but it does help you try to estimate what the fair market value is of an asset. Likewise, if you solve for value, if you know what the net operating income is in the cap rate, then you can calculate the value of that asset. So in our particular example with the ATM, $100,000 net operating income divided by, let's say, an 8% cap rate means that the fair market value of an ATM machine like this, in this kind of area, in that kind of condition, in that kind of shopping center, is $1.2 million. So in the case of an apartment building, you have an apartment building with a net operating income of $50,000. If you know that the cap rate is 8%, then you can say, hey, that thing is worth about $625,000. Now, where are you going to get the cap rate from? Good question. The best source of this is your real estate broker or brokers. You can ask 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, and if they're all telling you about the same thing, then you can reliably say that the cap rate is whatever it is. So that's the cap rate. I hope that helps. So let's get into the 10-minute analysis here. What we want to figure out, grab a sip of water here. What is my max offer price based on what we know? And again, the temptation is to overanalyze this stuff. What it took me a long time to understand is I don't need to understand the details of the expenses, this, that, and the other thing. We're going to use the information provided, and we're going to use that to start the negotiating process. And if there was a response to that negotiating process, then we will go further and further and further as far as it goes. Okay? So you don't want to over-engineer this thing. So what we're going to do is we are now going to open up this package again here, and I'm going to open up my syndicated deal analyzer, which you may or may not be familiar with. We're not going to use the entire analysis. In fact, you can build a lot of this yourself, but I'm going to use this tool because that's what I use, and a lot of people have purchased it as well and are very successful with it. So that's the tool I'm going to use because, well, that's what I got. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill this thing out, and we're going to answer the question, what should I offer for this thing? So the first thing we're going to do is we have 64 units, so we'll put in 64 units here. Asking price is 159, right? And let's assume that our purchase price is the same, even though it probably won't be, okay? And some stuff is pre-filled in. For example, it shows what the price per unit is. We're going to assume that we're going to put 30% down, even though it depends on how stable the asset is. We don't know that, but 30% is pretty conservative. We're going to assume that we get a 5% rate on a 25-year loan. There's not going to be a second on this, even though there could be. We don't know anything about repairs. We should probably put a rule of thumb in there, but right now we don't know anything. And so we're only going to work with the information we have, and we're going to make it clear to the broker and the seller that whenever we get material information that changes the deal will change. But right now, hey, let's not stress it. So let's see here. Cap rate at resale, we'll keep it 9. We don't know any better right now. So let's look and see the gross scheduled income. Gross scheduled income is what do we got here? We're 64 units. What does he have here? He's got 59.40 per unit per month. All right, now let me get this straight here. So he's got 495 times 64 times 12. Got that right. Okay. Then he's got 85% vacancy and bad debt. All right, great. So we'll just use the default is 10% vacancy and 5. That's 15%. All right, great. So the effective rental income, sure enough, matches what's in the thing. So what you want to do is you want to basically replicate the numbers that are supplied to you. That's kind of the first step because you want to kind of quote unquote use the seller's numbers against them in some way. So we're good so far. So the expenses here are, again, you don't want to care about all this stuff. The only thing you want to care about is they have the expense of 197. but they have depreciation there, which is weird. So we don't want to exclude that. So the expenses are 197,707. 197,707 minus that whatever the depreciation is. I don't even know what's in there. 35,444. 35,444. Okay. Let's see what percentage that is of income. So it's about 50% of the income or the expenses that are reported in here, which is not unreasonable. Okay, I like to use 55%. So 50 is a little low, not bad, but I would like to use 55%. So in my underwriting, I'm taking the numbers they have. I'm not doing it. The only modification I'm making to the underwriting is I'm going to use 55%. So I'm just going to put this back to 55%. So instead of 170, instead of what they're reporting, I'm reporting a little bit more on the expenses. All right, great. Now let's take a look here. So what we have now, if that's the only change we make, and we're going to tell the broker about this, we'll say, hey, in our experience, expenses, they're not 50, they're going to be more like 55, and that doesn't even include any kind of reserves per month. So I'm going to use 55. I use it for all my underwriting based on my experience and my network, and that's what people are telling me. So I'm going to use 55%. I'm using all the other numbers, and so that is a cap rate of 9. And so we'll look at the cap rate at resale to make sure that's that's about the same. So we're at 9%. Right, so the next step here is that you kind of create the returns for you or your investors. And the syndicated deal analyzer, it has a 70-30 split for investors. Now, if you have no investors and you're using your own money, then you are 100% of the investor, right? So you can see what the returns are if you owned everything. But by default, the syndicated deal analyzer has 70% going to the investors and 30% going to you. Now, there's different ways you can pay yourself on that, but we'll keep that for another day. But for now, if in the P&L tab, the P&L tab simply takes what you specified just now and just adds 3% to the rent and 3% to the expenses and just creates a 10-year P&L. So again, you don't need the syndicated deal analyzer to do simple stuff. You can recreate this yourself. For more complicated stuff, it really starts saving you a lot of time. But for this fairly simple scenario, it's just a matter of you calculating when you sell in year 5 or year 10 what your resale value is minus your commissions. And what you do then, the analyzer then calculates the average annual return, assuming all your cash flows and the paying down of the mortgage, as well as any profits from appreciation. And if that's all added together and divided by, let's say, 5 years, then the average annual return is 12.74. So on the surface of it, not bad. Okay, not bad. Now, now this goes back to figuring out what your investment criteria are. Okay, so if 12.74% for your investors is acceptable, this is great. You say, look, I'm in. You may need to know a little bit more, obviously, about we haven't figured out the repairs there, and so there's a few things missing. We also don't know anything about the upside potential. If there's upside potential, then you're going to want to customize the P&L. And let's say you're going to grow the rent significantly over the next 3 years. You want to create a custom P&L, which then, of course, modifies and raises your overall returns. But for now, we don't even know any of that stuff. We don't want to get into this. We want to do the 10-minute analysis, right? So let's say your minimum investment is 15% for the investors, which is kind of what I shoot for. So the way you do this is you start dropping the price here. You start saying, at what price will I make that return, given the information I have right now? So I'll drop it to 1.4, or we're at 21%. That's a little high, a little unnecessary. Poor guy, beat him up so bad. If I could type, that would be even better. Sorry about that. 1.45, now we're at 18. All right, we'll raise it a little bit more. Let's say we're at 1.475, 17. Shoot, let's just round it to an even 1.5. That might do it. All right, 16.4%. So maybe it's a little bit higher. Maybe it's 1.51. 16%, 1.51. So based on what we now know, we cannot pay more than 1.51. And what we're gonna say to the broker now is we're gonna get back to the broker and say, hey, I analyzed this thing based on the financials you gave. I took all your numbers that you gave me. Just a reminder, there's pro formas, not actual. So maybe you want to send me actuals. But based on what you gave me, I'm just making a slight tweak on the expenses because I'd like to see them at 55%, but I need to have a 15% return for my investors, and only to achieve that is the most I can pay given what you told me is 1.49. So your line of saying is 1.51. You obviously want to go in less than that, right? So let's offer 1.49. Okay, so that was very quickly how you got to that, simply based on a cap rate, the financials provided, and a calculation of your return. You calculated kind of what your price was, and then you went a little bit below it to give you room to kind of move up to that. All right, so now what we want to do is we actually want to make an offer on this thing, and the way that you make an offer is multiple ways, and we're going to use a letter of intent, but there's actually a few steps before then, and that is a phone call, an email, like the way I described, and I would call up the broker and tell them exactly what you just did. And actually, what I've started doing is sending them a video recording of my analysis. So I'll go to I'll use Jing, Jing, from TechSmith. You can Google it, and it allows you to create a video of anything on your screen. And the free version only allows you to do 5 minutes, but we don't need more than that. And I'll take a video analysis of my spreadsheet, and I'll even send them the spreadsheet and say, look, here, based on my analysis, here's what I'm coming up with, and the most I can pay is 1.49 million. Now, what does that do? Number one, it gives that broker feedback, and again, it elevates you above a lot of other people. And number two, it educates that broker how you're underwriting the deal and what you're looking for, so that broker knows more what you're looking for, right? And number three, it also starts a negotiating process. Okay, so here's what could happen. The broker could say, "Oh, yeah, that's not going to work. You're going to have to be at basically asking. I'm already getting multiple offers, so yeah, appreciate it. All right, it's fine." Or it might say, well, they might get back to you, and they might now start negotiating. Because, well, all right, I think probably the best we can do is 1.53, whatever. And now you can start looking at the motivation of that seller, and now you can take it to the next step. Okay, now if there's a next step, you say, okay, well, I need to now sharpen my pencil a little bit more and tweak it. So now I need to go to the next level, which may have to be getting financials, property visit, and digging in. And every time you do that, your model may change or will likely change as you get more information. And this process continues all the way through closing. But the thing that I always did is I always try to over-engineer it at every single step and spend way too much time versus doing a quick analysis, getting something back to the broker, and making offers. You got to be making offers, and I'm not saying you should throw a letter of intent over the fence all the time, but when I say making offers, it's a phone call, a verbal offer, an email offer. That's what I mean by making offers. Those all count. But let's say you get to the point where it says, okay, fine, I get you. Give me a letter of intent that I can present to the ownership. And letter of intent kind of gets the process going. It captures all the salient points of a deal. And the idea is that once you get agreement with the seller on that, at that point you can give that to an attorney and they can draft up a purchase contract. But no one wants to spend money on an attorney unless the material points of the deal are hammered out. Make sense? So I just want to show you that right now is making offer of a letter of intent. So we're actually going to do this together. So here's a letter of intent to purchase, and I'll go over this with you. It's very short. It's 2 pages, and the intent is it to be short. So in this one, we're going to enter Magnolia Gardens, and I already put in the address here. And let's see, the purchase price is going to be, I'm going to put in 1.49 here because I want to. 1.49. So the purchase price is going to be 1.49. And it's going to be payable as 1.49. And we're going to put a 1% earnest money deposit, which is $14,900. 1% is a good rule of thumb. Obviously, if you're making offers on more, you want to try to be lower, but it shows that you're serious if it's 1% or even higher. And then the rest is going to be paid 432 is going to be paid at closing. 32. And then the rest is going to be a loan, which is 1043. Okay, loan. Now let's just go through this letter of intent here real quick. So the owner cares about price, of course. Any other terms such as seller financing, you might ask them for seller financing, that needs to go in here. But the seller also cares about how long they think that you'll tie up their property. So this is what the letter of intent has to spell out. So the way we have it in here is that within 10 days of ratification of this document, the LOI, letter of intent, we will present a purchase contract for their consideration. Then the due diligence starts, and the way I have it is the due diligence period is normally between 10 and 21 days, depending on how big the property is. This one is it's not that big, but I have 21 days. It could be 14 days, but look at the way it's worded. Once seller delivers to buyer due diligence documents, buyer will have 21 days after receipt of requested due diligence documents to complete due diligence. Now, note it's not 21 days from the signing of the agreement, because what if the seller drags his feet to give you the documents, or gives you only half the documents, or whatever, and now he's eating into your due diligence and can cause you to have to void the contract, so it's no good. So after you get ratified, you're going to send them a list of all the documents you want, and once you've received everything, that's when the clock starts ticking. All right, so that's the due diligence period, or the inspection period, and then after that, 60 days to close. So normally after your due diligence, at that point, you decide to move forward. You tell your bank to go ahead and order the appraisal, and then the bank normally takes 45 to 60 days after that to close. So all in, you are within 45 to 90 days, depending on how you do that. So deposit is within 48 hours. You're going to put a deposit into escrow, and closing, of course, reiterates the 60-day time frame after the inspection period. It's a little bit boilerplate. The only thing is the assignment, that you're gonna make the contract assignable, and that's only because you're gonna create an LLC for this building, and so you're gonna have to sign the contract. So it's just a heads up to the seller that you're gonna likely do that. Then you put in your contact information here, and you sign it, and you send it over. And now you have made a much more formal offer that you can send over. All right, so that kind of wraps up the core part of it here, but I will give you the URL for the bonus download if you stick around another 10 minutes or so, and then we'll do a Q&A, because one of the things that I want to do is well, first of all, I want to summarize what we did so far. And we used LoopNet to kind of create a network of brokers. So you're going to create a spreadsheet with all the brokers that you find in there, and you're going to start contacting them and tracking the activity you've had with them, and your goal is to start setting up meetings with them, and they start feeding you deals. Then we found the deal on LoopNet, so after this call, if you haven't done so already, go to LoopNet and do exactly what we did here on the call. Okay, so request information for a deal, request the financials, and start analyzing that, either through the syndicated deal analyzer, and again, you don't have to purchase that, I think just create your own, so that you can create offers based on that, and start the negotiating process with an email or phone call. And when the broker says, "Yep, all right, fine, give me a letter of intent," then you know it's serious. And I will give you the download link for that here in a few minutes. If you stick around, I hope you do, and you can use that as a tool. And then when that's signed, you can then have attorney create a purchase contract. All right, and again, that purchase contract is going to have exits out there. So if you don't like something in due diligence, you can terminate the contract and get your money back, and you don't have to be afraid of putting something under contract, because you can still get out if you get cold feet. Does that make sense? So one of the things I want to do in the next 10 minutes is I wanted to introduce you to the course that I'm launching today, which is the ultimate guide to buying apartment buildings. And I think you'll want to stick around just for another few minutes, 10 minutes or so, because I think it'll make that big of a difference to you if you're serious about investing in apartment buildings. And plus, like I said, I'll bribe you with a letter of intent if you stick around till the end. But when I wanted to create this thing, as I told you before, I've had quite the frustrations, okay, with getting started. And I said, man, I really want to create a course that will give someone all the knowledge and all the tools to confidently go out and start raising money and making offers, and et cetera. And more importantly, I wanted to focus on raising money, because I feel that is the #1 hurdle for people getting started in apartment building investing is the lack of capital. And even if you do have your own capital, there's going to be a limit to it, or you may not want to deploy all your capital. I just spoke to someone recently who had a bunch of capital and used it to buy a 160 unit. Good for him, but he wanted to do more deals and he was out of capital. So guess what? His only option was to start raising money. So it doesn't really matter. Raising money is an incredibly good skill to have, and I have a huge section here. This is what the course looks like, by the way. I'm just logged in. I have a huge section here, almost 112 minutes of HD video and text that talks specifically about raising money. How to find your potential investors. What do they want? What kind of returns do they want? Why to avoid taking money from sophisticated investors? That's kind of a big deal. Creating the sample deal package. You've heard me talk about that. Ways to structure the investment. I spend a lot of time talking about the structure of an operating agreement, and I'll give you a tour of that, as well as a partnership agreement. Those are two separate documents and structures that you may want to use that I include with the course as well. We'll talk about it in a second. And so we talk a lot about how to raise money, how to structure a deal, and how to comply with securities laws. So raising money was a big deal to me. That's why I spent so much time on this thing. Now the other thing I want to do is I really wanted to be a multimedia. Okay, I wanted to be high quality video. I wanted to be able to download the audio. So there's a section here where you can download all of these chapters onto your device and listen to them. But I also wanted to give you an ebook. So you can download the ebook here. There's 185 page ebook as well. And then if you look at the other thing I wanted to do, in addition to multimedia, so they can consume it in whatever format you want, is I wanted to be action-oriented and real-world. So I use a case study throughout the whole thing to demonstrate the concept. So, if you look at, for example, the 10-minute analysis here, the 10-minute analysis, if you click on that section, we'll start playing a video of that section, which is 8 minutes long. I want to pause it here for a second. I'm sure you believe me talking ahead here. And below it is the text for that section. Okay, so with the actual screenshots, and these are the excerpts from the ebook. So you can either download the PDF and take it with you, or you can read the text right here. And as you see here, they're very specific. Now, obviously, the syndicated deal analyzer comes with a course because I use it throughout, from the 10-minute analysis all the way through due diligence and to model the exit as well. So it's a core component of it. But anyway, the point is I use a case study throughout the whole thing as well, and I give you a bunch of other case studies at the end that involve me talking about and showing you how to use the analyzer to analyze different deals as well. This also comes with a document library. Document library means there's certain documents, samples, checklists that I use often that I reference throughout the course, and I include those here. So, for example, the making offers, there's a letter of intent here. I also have a purchase contract that you can use. I also have an addendum to standard realty contract. So if you're forced to use, say, a Marcus Millichap or an MLS or MIRS contract, there are certain terms that we look for that are very important that I have in that addendum that make a material difference. And so I show you how to create an addendum, and it's in there. So there's a bunch of other stuff in here that are referenced throughout the course that I want you to be able to download. So in short, really, I wanted to produce the highest quality, most comprehensive course on apartment building investing with a special focus on raising money. And I wanted to be the best of its kind on the planet. So really, I want to arm you with all the knowledge and tools that you need to go out and get started with raising money, looking for deals, and making offers. Now, I am offering some coaching, and you can look at that later on, but I'm really hoping that everything you need is in this course, and that was really my goal. Now, I do have some bonuses, of course, okay? I thought about these carefully, but one of the bonuses I want to give you is 60 days of priority email access. So if you do purchase the course, then you can send me emails for 60 days, and I will do my best to respond to all of them, and I value that at $500 or so. The second one is a syndicator legal library, and I thought about this hard. So what this is, I didn't show it to you earlier, but the syndicated legal library is I've seen others offer this separately, and that includes the actual operating agreement, and that is templaticized that you can modify. And actually, I have two. I have an operating agreement that I include that has the investors fairly silent, and you basically making all decisions. And then I have a partnership agreement that is a little more complex. It has multiple classes of members and also allows you to own multiple LLCs. So in other words, if you want to raise money in a partnership, this allows you to then use that to acquire multiple LLCs. So it's fairly complex. I spent, let's see, you probably spent $1,000 on the operating agreement and $2,500 on a partnership agreement. So I'm saying, hey, you still got to take this to your attorney to review it, but I've templaticized it and highlighted the areas that you should pay attention to. I have an executive summary at the top that tells you the major terms that are in there in the sections. So you can go in there and modify it. First of all, read it, understand it, and then modify it and give it to your attorney. And he might charge you, he will charge you some money for that. But I'm thinking it'll save you $2,000 on that alone. And I thought about offering that as a separate, syndication, raising money module. But I was like, you know what? No, I want everything to be together because I think they're so tightly linked, and you can't have one without the other. So I'm including it here. And if you've purchased a syndicated deal analyzer for $97, I will credit that towards a future program if you decide to purchase this. Just send me an email, and I'll send you a special code that will give you a $97 credit towards the course. So I'm going to give you 3 reasons to purchase the course, of course. One is achieve your goals faster, and I really want to shave off like 3 years off your learning curve because I feel like with this kind of information, it would have done exactly that. Number 2 is I want to avoid expensive mistakes. Now, let me just warn you, you're going to make mistakes. There's really no way you can avoid that. You're going to make mistakes. I just want to avoid the ones that make you lose your shirt or your house. We want to try to avoid those mistakes. Okay, so that's another reason. And then consider the alternatives. You don't obviously you got to invest in your education, but it doesn't have to be with me. There are boot camps out there for 3 days, 2-3 days, and they'll cost between $1,000 and $3,000 to go to a boot camp. And but you got to travel, you got to take off from work, you got to pay for a hotel, and most likely you'll be upsold to $15,000, $20,000 coaching program. And I don't want to do that. Okay, I want to give you everything you need online on your device that you can reference again and again. So if not this course, that's fine, but then do something. You're on this call, which means that you're already interested in educating yourself. Just do something. I also have, as you know, a lot of free resources out there on the Bigger Pockets, my own blog, and podcast, of course, and the YouTube video. So do something. Here's just a couple of testimonials I just gotta read. This is Alexander Ramirez, who used the operating agreement, and he says it's saved him probably $2,000. The operating agreement template alone. The other one is kind of funny by Paul. I went in and purchased your deal analyzer, watched the videos, and assessed the analyzer itself. Forgive me when I say this, but effing A, this thing is awesome. I can't imagine how many hours you put into developing the spreadsheet. 5 years. But thank you for doing it. This is definitely a work smarter, not harder kind of resource. So I appreciate that, Paul. All right. Now I will give you a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can go in there and play around for 30 days, download everything, all the audio, everything you want. And if it's not for you, or this is not for me, it's not what I was looking for, or you're really uncomfortable with the whole thing, you just email me, and I will just refund that money to you. I also will give you free updates, meaning, and I've done this twice already with the analyzer. If you've purchased in the last 6 months, I will update the analyzer periodically as I continue to use it and I get feedback from you. But I will also continue to update the online course because it is online. It's not like CDs. So actually, I already have a couple of chapters I want to add next week to that, and I will continue adding that. So that is going to be a living thing, and it's going to be updated by me. So you get free updates as well. So here's what you get. You got the instant access to the complete online course with the 8.5 hours of HD video, with the 8.5 hours of audio that you can download also, the ebook, the syndicated deal analyzer software, the document library, and the 2 case studies. And by the way, I will continue adding that over time, so that will be 2+ case studies as well. You get your 30-day money-back guarantees. There's really no risk at all. You get the free upgrades, and then the 3 bonuses: the email support, the syndicated legal library, and any previous purchase credited towards the course. And to me, the course itself is probably worth the value of a 3-day boot camp, which normally costs $2,000, including travel, or maybe a little bit more. All right. So if you add everything up, the whole value here is about $4,500, and I realize that is a lot. I'm not going to charge you that. I'm not even charge you the cost of a normal boot camp. I want to charge just under $1,000 to make it a no-brainer for you to invest in your education. So with there, go to the Ultimate Apartment Investing Guide.com and check it out. You can spend some more time looking at it. You can tour the course itself, and you can spend a lot of time looking at it. There's a bunch of videos there as well. But again, there's a 30-day guarantee, so there should be no risk at all. If it's not what you want, I will return it to you. Now I'm going to give you 2 bonuses, okay, that I'm only doing because you're on this live webinar, and they're going to expire this Sunday at midnight. Okay, so one of them is anyone who, if you buy before Sunday, you'll get a 1-hour Q&A webinar in a group with me, and the first 10 to take action before Sunday at midnight will get a 60-minute private coaching call with me. And what we'll do is we'll do some emails to see what you want to talk about, and we'll structure the call for 60 minutes so you get the maximum value of that. And that expires on Sunday because I can't do that for everyone that buys the course, but I do want to do it for the first 10. All right, so I hope you'll take advantage of that. And with that, your bonus here, which is your sample letter of intent, and that's at ultimateapartmentinvestingguide.com/webinar1-bonus. Okay, it's webinar 1-bonus, and there you can download the letter of intent and modify it and use it to make your own offers. So with that, I will take some questions. I really appreciate all you guys sticking around for this long, and I really appreciate your time on this webinar. And thanks for all of your feedback and your positive words that kind of keep me going. So again, check out ultimateapartmentinvestingguide.com, and with that, let me hear some of your questions, and type them in the chat box. All right, so good question. George asks, how can you line up the money for the deal before you start analyzing and submitting LOLs? That is a fantastic question. Actually, if you've read my ebook, my free ebook that you can download off themichaelblank.com, I talk a great deal about that. The short answer is you're going to create a sample deal package. What that is you're going to do what you did here in LoopNet, and you're going to provide an analysis of that, and you're going to create an investor package. And in the ebook, it kind of describes how you do that and includes a sample at the very end of it. So you're going to create a deal package, and that's what you're going to use to when you meet with investors. You're going to say, hey, I'm raising money. I'm doing apartment building deals. The minimum investment is going to be $50,000. The returns are going to be between 10 and 15%. Do you know anyone who might be interested? And they might say no. Or they might say, well, I'm interested. Or they might say, well, my brother might be interested. And you follow up on those leads, and you set a meeting. And in that meeting, you talk about and you use your sample deal package to say, look, I don't have a deal right now under contract, but when I do, it'll look a lot like this. What do you think? Bill asked, does it include a sample investor presentation package? It would be helpful, especially for first-timers. Yes, absolutely. I talk a lot about creating a sample deal package, which flows out of your analysis of the deal. Now, I don't know about a presentation. I have not done group presentations. I know some people teach that. Number one, you have a special status to be able to do that. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but normally that's more of an advanced thing where you fill a room up and you pitch it to strangers. You need a certain SEC exemption for that. Again, it just costs money. It's not a big deal. But I have found that word of mouth and one-on-one meetings are simply more effective. So you're not going to do it with a PowerPoint, but you may do it, with the sample deal package printed out or on your tablet or laptop or something like that. All right, Sai asked, do you pay attorneys before closing or with your closing money? That is a good question. So it depends on your attorney. Mine, what he did is he made me pay half the retainer up front and half at closing. So that's what he did, and it's going to depend on your attorney. But there does come a point where you need to start spending money, meaning that when you put it on a contract, you have to put an EMD down, and then you're doing your due diligence. You want to defer spending money as long as possible. So before you start paying an attorney or whatever, you want to complete everything in your due diligence, everything that you can that doesn't cost money, such as reviewing financials, documents, things of that nature. Jonathan asks, will this recording be posted for review later? You're late! Yes, it will. Actually, it'll be posted. You should probably receive an email, I think tomorrow, with the replay of that. So you will be able to replay that. Can we post the URL for the bonus? It came down a bit quickly. Okay, hang on a sec. I'm going to redirect everyone here. Okay, what is this? But yes, I will put that in the email also to answer your question. That is a great idea. Someone says we have some noisy audio. I don't know what the issue is. I'm not in a windy place, no. Someone asks, does the program cover wholesaling apartment buildings? No, I don't cover wholesaling. Well, I do. I do actually have a chapter on flipping, and I put it in only for completeness. But I am not a flipper, though I am a value add guy. So flipping could be the 2-year flip. That to me is a flip. But really, I want to build long-term wealth and cash flow, and that's kind of that's kind of my focus as well. But I do talk about wholesaling a little bit also. It's really, yeah. All right, seems we have some sound problems. Yeah, sorry about that. Let's see what else we got here. Troy asked a question regarding, do you find expenses higher on the larger properties? I'm seeing averages 63 actuals and 200 unit properties. Yes, they do tend to be higher. I don't know about 200 units, but like when you're under between 75 and 100, and the reason for that is because of you start having payroll expenses. So you actually have full-time people working. You have a leasing agent, and you probably have a repair person. And once they're full-time, a full-time person can handle 75 to say 120 units. So if you're more on the lower end, that the overhead as a percentage of the total deal is going to be higher. So yes, that actually may be a little bit higher, depending on the size of the deal. Caleb asks, how does deciding equity percentage work when one investor wants to invest 100% of the money required for a deal, no banks? I have an investor interested in that very scenario. So in general, when you invest, whether a bank or not is involved, doesn't really matter. I like using banks because it's cheap money you can get right now, and it's a leveraged return. So I don't know why the investor would put in 100% of cash. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me to do that. I'd rather take that investor's cash and buy 2 or 3 properties with it, Caleb. That's what I would recommend. All right, you can hear me again. Sweet. Awesome. Well, hopefully this thing will record and you'll be able to hear me on the replay for the questions. Adam asks, if you're shooting for 15% average annual return for investors, what percent return are you as a manager looking for? That is, well, since I'm not as a manager, let's say you're a manager. Just as a manager, you're not putting on your money. If you are putting in your money, you're also an investor, right? So you're on the investor side. But as a manager, you can't measure it in a percent return because there's no investment you put in as a manager. Typically, and this depends on the size of the deal, but anything under, say, 50 units, I like to retain 25 to 30% equity as a syndicator. As the buildings get bigger, that percentage can drop. So if you're syndicating, let's say, a 150 unit deal, and you end up with 10% equity, that's pretty good. The way I look at the return is I simply look and see whether it's worth my time. You know, if I'm syndicating a 100 unit deal and of that I get paid $10,000 a year, you're gonna like, wow, that's a lot of trouble for a lot. That doesn't seem right to me. But in general, you do want to make sure as a syndicator you're paid properly, okay? And I've seen syndicators who tell me, oh, my investors get an 8% preferred return and 80% of the equity. And I do the numbers on that thing. I said, dude, you're never getting paid on this deal. You're not getting paid ever, either during or after. Because what if your returns actually are 5% per year, not 8? So that means that the 3% you're missing are going to be tacked on the balance that you owe. So when you sell, you actually owe the investors. You never get paid anything. So you got to be really, really sure that you pay yourself properly and reasonably. And if your investors have a problem with that, you should probably go somewhere else. And they shouldn't have a problem with that, because you want to be on the same page as them. So if you make money, they make money, and vice versa. It can't be that the investor makes all the money, you get paid no money. What incentive do you have to really perform? None, right? So you should get paid more. The question is, how long will the program be available to purchase at this price? That is the price. So I'm not going to play games and give discounts or raise price. That is the price of the program. I want to keep it at $9.95. Bill asks, is there a max number of deals a lender will finance? No, because you're in a commercial realm. You're not talking about more personal or residential mortgages, whereas that, whatever, 4 or 5 or something limit. I don't even know what it is, which is a little silly. Commercial side, no, there's no limit to that. Lena asks, do you have to provide proof of funds in order to get the real numbers, not pro forma numbers from the seller? No. No, not normally. I mean, normally actuals should be provided with the marketing package. The only thing you may have to do is you may have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. But if someone, what we just did today is simply just on what you got, but they should send you that. If not, I would just kind of move on. So you do not need to provide proof of funds to get that. Andrew asks, can you speak on purchasing apartments outside of your drivable area? Do you discourage that? No, I don't, because it's becoming more and more necessary. I'm looking in 3 geographies. I live in Northern Virginia, but I'm looking in Baltimore 2 hours away, D.C. an hour away, and Richmond 3 hours away. So that is drivable. There's still 3 separate markets. The effort to look for deals there is still the same as if you're looking, let's say, somewhere else. I just don't want to spend more than 3 hours traveling, 3 or 4 hours. So if you can expand the drivable area to flyable area, now you're looking at a much wider area. I have not given up on my own area yet, even though I am struggling to finding deals that meet my criteria, kind of like we talked about today. So I am toying with the idea of going to other geographies that will require a flight. I talk a lot about that in the course, though, because I've done it in Texas, and I'm doing it again here in a 3 hours away. So it's kind of the same process every single time, is building your own network of brokers and other professionals like lenders, property inspectors, etc., analyzing deals, getting interest, maybe even getting something under contract before you go out and look at something. So it is definitely doable, and it may be more and more necessary here as the market heats up. What's the minimum number of units needed to support property manager and maintenance? Well, every single deal will or should support a property manager. Okay. The only question is, is it going to be a full-time or part-time people? In a 12-unit apartment building, for example, the property management company will manage it for you, but there's no one, say, living in the building, right? Because there's one property manager that manages multiple buildings. So, but each deal, in my opinion, will support a property manager, and you should use a property manager unless you're trying to learn the ropes yourself. There's an argument made for that, but I would only do it with the plan of removing yourself, unless you have serious plans of creating your own property management company, which some investors do. But unless you're going to do that, definitely build in a property management company. I'd rather spend my time looking for deals and looking for money than building a management company, honestly. But that all depends on you. Antoine, thank you for asking about the course. Is there monthly cost after the initial purchase? Good idea. No, there isn't. It's a flat rate. Flat rate. Does your course delve into debt versus equity and the pros and cons of each, and how to vet investment partners? The short answer is yes. I suggest that to go to the ultimateapartmentinvestingguide.com and allow you to actually peruse the course. There's actually 3 sections you can preview. You can watch the whole video, read the entire text, so you get a sense for the quality, which I hope you agree is excellent. and you can look at the table of contents there. So just go to that and allow you to look at it. You can see every single chapter and every single section. So the short answer to your question is is yes. I do spend a lot of time on traditional financing because 98% of your deals are going to involve financing. And so how do you put together a loan package that gets accepted? And there's a lot of things you can do that sets you apart, makes you look very professional and serious, and makes the lenders go, yep, I'll do that loan. Rishi asks, how important is the syndicator's financial status, credit score, reserves, etc., when seeking a bank financing? Very. It is very important. However, having said that, the larger the deal becomes, the less important it becomes. So, for example, if the loan balance is above $1 million, you start getting into the realm of non-recourse loans. Meaning, non-recourse loans are loans that are not that don't have to be personally guaranteed by you. They're only guaranteed, quote unquote, by the property. Smaller loans do need to be personally guaranteed by you, and that's one of the things I don't like smaller deals because of that. But the banks still require a certain amount of liquidity equal to the loan balance. I'm sorry, equal to 10% of the loan balance and a net worth of the loan balance, right? So if you're doing a loan of $3 million, you need to have a net worth of $3 million. Now, do most syndicators have that? No, they don't. That they get that, just like they get the money. So the conversation with the investors is, hey, give me all your money, and also, by the way, I'm going to need you it needs to help me to underwrite the loan. Would you be willing to help me underwrite the loan and share your personal financial statement so we can get this thing done? And most investors were like, yeah, sure, it's no problem at all. In fact, I just spoke with an investor last week who was surprised at my answer, my question about this. He goes, yeah, all of my investors actually co-sign on the loan. Really? I don't do that at all. But when you're doing larger and larger deals, that may become necessary where you have maybe a co-sponsor or two other co-sponsors that their net worth and liquidity satisfies the lender. And maybe you pay them a little extra at closing, or you give them a little extra equity for that. So that's the way to accommodate that. But keep that in mind as you speak with investors. You may ask them to become a co-sponsor as well. James asks, why should we avoid sophisticated investors? That's the question. The short answer is this: sophisticated investors know what they're doing. They have a ton of money. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. They've probably been burned before, and they have a very high deal flow, which means that if they don't do the deal, there's 9 others after them, and so as a result, they will ask you for a humongous sliver of equity, and when things go badly, they will make darn sure that they're protected and you get nothing. And the only reason you should use sophisticated investors like that, they're called angel investors, is when you have a track record and are doing much bigger deals, 150 plus, and you've exhausted your personal net worth. Only then can you actually make demands. Otherwise, the investor will say, hey, I'll give you all the money you want, but I want 80% of this deal and 8% preferred rate of return. So don't do that. Go out to your friends and family and build your network. And get referrals and referrals and referrals and do it one-on-one, and that way a preferred rate of return and things of that nature just to come into play. They're not going to be asked for that. Troy asked, is the acquisition fee considered taxable income during the close since it's paid from money loaned by private investors? Yeah, it's gonna show up as income for you because it's basically like a consulting fee that you're being paid. So it'll show up on you have to report, you have to pay tax on it. And he asks, because you're looking for 25% equity in the deal, are you providing value in management or finding and putting deal together? Yes. Yes to both. Number one, in order for you to actually buy a property, that means you've probably looked at or made offers, looked at probably 50 to 100 other deals before you actually got this one. So you have spent tons and tons of time without compensation. Then you're putting a deal together. You're bringing a bunch of investors together who probably don't know each other and couldn't actually do this themselves. So you're providing value for them. And then you are managing the property manager. And if things go well, great. You don't have much to do. But if things don't go well, you're going to be looking for another property management company, and that's going to take time. And I've been through that once. It's not much fun, but sometimes you have to do that. So in other words, you do need to be compensated when you buy, while you own the asset, and then also when you sell as well. Christine's trying to purchase the analyzer, but see two different prices. One's 97, one's 99. Oops, I'll fix it. It should be 97 when you go to the checkout. It should be 97. Sorry about that. Appreciate it, Christine. Thank you. All right, listen, I'll end the call now. I really appreciate your involvement and your time in this. I'll send the email out and make sure that the link to the webinar bonus is in there and the replay as well. And I really, really appreciate your time and listening to this. And quickly, let me know in your chat box. Do you want me to do something like this again in a month or so? Was this valuable to you? All right, I appreciate that. So I will work on something else maybe in a month or so. Ooh, we got another question real quick. I can't resist. Troy asked, "What's the typical cost for putting a PPM together?" That varies. Okay, that varies. Normally, a private placement memorandum will cost $10,000 to $20,000, which is another reason why you should do larger deals and not do smaller deals. My SEC attorney, if you email me, I can refer you to him. He actually charges less than that. He'll charge more like $6,000 for that, between $6,000 and $10,000, depending on the size of the deal and the complexity of that. And he affordable and very good at what he does, and you can do it nationwide. So I have referred a few people to him. A good resource for you, Marsha. I appreciate it. All right. Well, I appreciate all the kind words. I will work on something else, and then I will make sure this thing is up for replay. And I appreciate all you guys. And I will see you on the next webinar or podcast or YouTube video. You guys take care. Thanks.